Welcome to a dry and sunny Les Abdelon on day 19 of the race. Today is Sustainability Friday, but actually as an organisation we think about the environment every day. It's just that today it gets a special focus. As we have the ocean as our racetrack, our playground and indeed our office, for the 39 remaining skippers out on the water, it's a very special place and we regard our position as stewards of the ocean very important. Joining me today are our two guests, leading scientists in their field. We have Dr. Katy Hill in the UK, and she is a lead scientist for global ocean observing. And we're going to continue our conversations that we had from last week with Joanna from UNESCO, talking about the citizen science and what our skippers are doing out on the water. Katy, tell me, why is it important that you have our skippers participating in scientific research?
I think it's absolutely important. We look for every opportunity we can to get the observations in the ocean where we need them, and often those areas of the ocean are remote and at times hostile. So having the skippers particularly go through those areas of the ocean, the Southern Ocean, and getting observations from that very critical part of the ocean system is incredibly valuable.
Well, we're going to be hearing more about that. We also have joining us today Dr. Michael Wenger in Switzerland, CEO and Chief Editor of Polar Journal. Now, given the sailors are rounding the Cape of Good Hope, heading into the Southern Ocean, it's an opportunity for us to learn much more about this area. Michael, this is a specialist area for you. Why are the polar regions so magical to you?
Well, it's definitely one of the it's the last wilderness on this planet. It's really unchallenged, and as a human being you're completely very small there. We're talking about thousands and thousands of miles, nautical miles, where you basically don't see anything else than water. And then when you go even further down south to the polar regions, you come to an area where it looks like a desert, but it's teeming with life. It's probably one of those few places here in the world where the looks are deceiving. And once you get there, it's just simply amazing as a biologist or even as a visitor to see how different types of life forms have evolved and really not just surviving there, but really living there and thriving. And it's also one of those places where we really are just a guest and not a conqueror, or a place where we would usually live. So it's a truly remarkable place. It's the sounds, it's the smell, everything. So definitely one of the best places in the world.
Well, about to find out are our skippers as they head into the Southern Ocean. We now have all 39 of our racing skippers in the Southern Hemisphere, with Zabi, our Hungarian sailor, passing the equator at just before 9 o'clock yesterday evening. Today, the front fleet will pass the first of the three great capes, the Cape of Good Hope, and enter into their Southern Hemisphere, Southern Ocean. And for some of those skippers, it will remind them of memories that they will rather forget. And we're talking about the fauna in the ocean, and we know that Sam Davies and Seb Simon actually retired 4 years ago into Cape Town, so this is quite a treacherous place on the ocean. Paul Mayat on board Biotherm has taken advantage of the transition that they were sailing in to use his planktoscope that he has, and he's also been looking at studying the species that he asked his partner Tara Institute to look at, and he told us about seeing his first albatross.
Très joli coucher de soleil. Et j'ai vu mon premier albatros tout à l'heure, voilà. Ça y est, on est au sud.
So they're in the south, but somebody not quite in the south is skipper Conrad Colman on board MS Amlin, that's joining us live today on the show. And we're going to see how life is on board Conrad's boat. There he is in that fighting pack of daggerboard boats. He's been in sight of the others. How is it on board MS Amlin, Conrad?
Heidi, yeah, things are going great here, actually. It's been a bit of a challenge. Yesterday I saw Giro, the day before that. I was sandwiched in between Alain Roy and Benjamin Ferret, and of course Jean-Carlo. And so it's a testament to how crazy the weather has been that we've had this mix of very, very different boats. You know, three foilers, 2 daggerboard boats that I've had on the horizon recently, and each one is able to show their strengths in these sort of challenging circumstances. And right now, I am absolutely hammering along. I've got the big spinnaker up, the small staysail inside of that. I have every little square centimetre of sail area that I can possibly put up at the moment, and it's going on quite well. I'm doing sort of 16 to 20 knots of boat speed with a wind speed that's similar, and it's beautiful, beautiful sailing right now.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing, and I'm really pleased that life is good on board. Now, is the competition a distraction, or is it helping you push the boat harder?
I don't think that many people could push me harder than I push myself. I'm glued on my polars. Right now I'm going 97% of my potential speed, and so I am out here absolutely thrashing myself to try and get the best out of both myself and the boat. But it's stressful, you know. Last night I ended up on the wrong side of a cloud that pushed me off course and slowed me down. And I was able to see on the AIS that Benjamin was absolutely blitzing his way off on course with a good speed. And so, you know, maybe being an AIS range with the other boats is sort of a double-edged sword, because it shows just how good or how bad the other guys have it, and you can't.
Well, I don't want to be responsible for that last 2% that you're looking for, but one thing you've always been really passionate about, Conrad, is being fossil fuel free. You advocated that back in 2016, and it's something you're repeating, and I think you've helped drive that agenda forwards in the Vendée Globe. What do you do on your boat for power? What's so special?
Well, yeah, I certainly hope that I've been able to push the game forward. I'm very proud of the fact that I was the first person to do it. It's sad up until now that I'm the only person to have done it, but I'm delighted that there are other sailors, including Nexans and also La Micaline, with Arnaud taking up the mantle as well, with the objective of going zero emissions. How I manage the energy on board is it's actually super easy. I've put so many solar panels on board my boat, 2,800 watts. The boat charges all by itself, and I go into the night every time with 100% power, and I come out of the night with 75% power, and then it, you know, starts up and charges again. So it's super, super easy. It actually reduces the sort of mental load that I have on board the boat, because I'm not worrying about when is the next time I need to start the diesel generator, because the boat charges itself all the time. And then as a backup to that, when, you know, as you know, diving into the south does get cloudy, and so I then can augment the solar panels with the hydro generators. I have slightly more battery power on board, sort of 500 amp hours at 24 volts than is normal, but that gives me more autonomy and thus, again, less stress. So no diesel on board, but lots of other technology, and thus far it's working really well.
Oh, that's good to hear. Is there anything you're missing? We're like now approaching the end of the 3rd week. Are you missing any creature comforts of home?
A good shower would be nice. A foamy shower would be great. But actually, I've been pretty good on that front, because I've had a surplus of energy, so I've been making fresh water and keep myself sort of squeaky clean. Of course, last night it sort of sunk into me as I was getting out the 21st day pack of food, that, wow, you know, 20 days out of 80, 85, 90 days at sea, I feel like I've been away for a long, long time, and yet this is still very much just the beginning. So I'm excited for what's to come, because it means that we can finally sort of put our foot down and go faster around the south and make it home.
Well, Conrad, it's lovely for you to join us today. I really appreciate your time. Now go get that extra 2% so you're at 100% polars. Thank you.
Thanks, Dee. You're doing a great job here.
So, Michael, just coming back to you, Paul Mayat mentioned before we went to Conrad that he'd seen his first Albatross. What makes them so magical? For us sailors, they're a sign, they're really symbolic. They're a sign of sailors that we've lost at sea. They're spirits that are guiding the rest of us as we sail. And they're magical creatures. Why is that?
First of all, you have to go back a little bit in time, because when the sailors back in the 18th century or the 19th century with their wooden sailing ships had been down there, they didn't do 16 or 20 knots. They were basically cruising there with a few knots, and they were away for a long time as well. So all they saw was water, and all of a sudden you saw these birds. And when you see a bird, you already know there must be land somewhere. Now, the thing with albatross, because especially the wandering albatross, it's the largest seabird in the world. We're talking about a massive bird here, with about 3 meters 20 wingspan. It weighs about somewhere between 9 and 12 kilograms, depending on where it is. So they're really massive. They're huge, and when they fly over your head, it's like it's like a jump. It's like a jet going over your head there. And the birds were following the vessels because they were sailing on the same route. So here's the connection also now with the sailors of the Vendée Globe, because they need the wind. Albatross hardly flap their wings. They just basically lock their joints in the shoulders, tendons, and they're basically sailing just like effortlessly, hundreds and hundreds of miles without one beat of the wings. And that's something that really amazed the sailors back then. And
I
because
think, to
it's
be honest,
sheer
Michael,
magic and beauty.
Michael, that would it
Sorry?
amazes the sailors every day when we see them, because as you say, they literally don't move. It is quite special, and those pictures were stunning. It's so lovely to hear that it started way back. One thing our skippers are definitely doing is focusing on not only their race, but also their responsibility to the ocean as the stewards. And we've got 25 of our 39 remaining skippers that are actively involved in deploying scientific equipment. And we put a little video together to show you just what that equipment looks like.
Hello, so we're here with the Argos floater, a scientific tool that we're going to throw in the water here in the South Atlantic. So this is a tool that's going to spend its life in the water. It's going to go down to about 1,000 meters. It'll spend 10 days at 1,000 meters. It goes down to 2,000 meters, and then it comes back up to the surface and it sends its data back to land. So it's measuring water salinity, it's measuring deep sea currents, because it's down at 1,000 meters for 10 days, and it sends all this data back to scientists who can then use the data to learn more about our oceans.
Aujourd'hui, je vous emmène dans l'espace laboratoire de mon bateau. Donc ici, nous avons le capteur microplastique. Ici, nous avons le capteur Ocean Pack, CO2, salinité, température. Et ici, nous avons le capteur d'ADN environnemental, puisqu'en fait, dans le cadre de mon Vendée Globe, je réalise un recensement du vivant tout au long du parcours. Et donc tous les jours, je dois changer ces filtres. Et à chaque fois, c'est la même chose. L'installation des filtres. Un cycle pour faire passer une dizaine de litres dans les filtres d'ADN environnemental. Et un cycle de séchage pour bien assécher les filtres d'ADN. Et donc grâce à ces filtres révolutionnaires, on va pouvoir détecter la présence des plus petites bactéries jusqu'aux plus grands cétacés qui peuplent les océans. Tout ça sur le chemin du Vendée Globe.
As you can see, the sailors are very busy, and it's a huge commitment. So, Dr. Katy Hill, please, I'm looking at this picture. These are the Argo floats that have been deployed. How many is too many? I mean, that looks like it's very busy out there in the ocean.
It certainly does. And of course, those are very big dots for what are very small dots in the ocean. There are around 4,000 Argo floats out there. Most of them, as Sam was saying, go down to 2,000 meters. We have some new ones which will go down to 6,000 meters. And a subset of those are also measuring biogeochemistry. As he was saying, they all drop down to 1,000 meters and they stay there until it's time to do a profile. So they stay there for about 10 days and then they drop to 2,000, come up to the surface and they send a profile. So we get one profile every 10 days from one of those floats. And it's always a balance then, because by doing it that way, those floats have multi-year lifetimes. They live for, on average, 6 years, if not longer. If not, there are many out there that are over a decade old, taking those measurements and tracking our ocean climate. So 4,000 is actually not that many. We still have an undersampled ocean. By combining that data with satellite data as well at the surface, that surface map and ocean models, we can glean new insights into how the ocean is changing.
So the Argo floats, you said by value, it's like throwing a small car into the ocean. And we also have the drifter buoys. And this chart here, the pale blue dots are the drifter buoys. I always feel really bad about throwing something into the ocean that we're meant to be protecting. Should we be okay with this?
So what we're putting into the ocean is very valuable scientific equipment, as we were saying, and the value in terms of data that we get from that equipment has huge benefits in terms of understanding our ocean environment. That equipment can wash up and we can collect it increasingly. So for instance, with those drifting buoys, they're looking at using kind of wooden floats and other ways to reduce what goes into the ocean. And over time, of course, we're looking at equipment that will be easier to retrieve, such as what I'm calling the Argo nieces and nephews behind me, the ocean gliders, which are steerable. But all of these measurements have a lighter footprint than taking our large diesel-powered research vessels out into the ocean to take those same measurements. And so we target our research vessel work where we can, and of course looking at kind of green fuel future for research vessel operations.
Well, Katy, it's been wonderful having you join us on the show and learn a little bit more detail about this equipment. Thank you for your time, and I know our sailors are really enjoying their participation in looking after our ocean and helping. Now, at the front of the fleet, heading into the Southern Ocean and the Roaring Forties, is Charlie Danning, race leader on board Massif, and I caught up with him this morning.
Yeah, pretty tactical night with big shifts to be played. Wind low pressure areas to avoid. So yeah, normal sleep last night. Today is a bit more into a bigger, stronger breeze, and also wind needles current, which makes the sea state very different from 1 hour to the next, because when you are sailing against the current, the sea state is much worse than when you are sailing with it. So you have to adjust a bit the sail settings of the boats to adjust to the sea state. But another fast day again today.
That's right, and you're well ahead of the record.
Oh, do I don't even know that. I'm so focused on the race. I didn't look at all on record times or anything like this. But yeah, great. I'm trying to sail a race, not a record. So that's why I didn't push this hard during the fast moment in the Southern Atlantic, because I wanted to preserve the boat and preserve myself to be in good shape for the rest.
And the pack you're in is super close, super competitive. Are you able to focus on your race, or are you constantly looking over your shoulder?
It's definitely part of the equation. Every time I make a decision, I'm thinking about how this will, what leverage is it going to give me against them. So, what risks am I taking, being here or there? So, definitely the tactical aspect of the race is definitely an important one.
And is the boat in good shape heading forwards now?
Yeah, very good shape. I didn't touching wood, not much wood on board, but pretty happy with the little repairs I had to make since the start. Really not much at all. So hopefully I will remain like this, but I doubt so because it's a Vendée Globe. So I know I will have repairs, more or less important repairs coming, obviously. So, but yeah, for now, yeah, I had few things to do, but not much at all. So I'm pretty happy so far. It's good.
Well, Charlie, they're looking a little bit tired, but still in good shape and feeling good about what's ahead. This area, as he mentioned, he could feel the sensations of the Agulhas current. It's an area very rich in food, and therefore the amount of fauna increases. And that's one concern that our skippers have. Michael, if I come to you, what is the other type of animals they get? Because penguins are big down there, aren't they?
There's in the places where they are going, it's rather than even the bigger marine mammals like whales that are crossing down, going from north to south now because Antarctic season has now started, so it's time for feeding down in the south. Birds, then of course, there are around about 47 types of birds. Seabirds in the area breeding in the Southern Ocean. They might come across penguins, but the whole thing is it's very patchy, so it's not a constant view of animals that they will see there. They might get to see nothing for days, and then all of a sudden they get into these patches where a lot of food is abundant, thanks to the currents and the conditions underneath the water. And then all of a sudden you will have lots and lots of wildlife, birds, whales, even seals that have been traveling to these places to feed. So it's going to be interesting for them to keep an eye out on the time. There might be some maybe elephant seals like you see here that they are crossing, but these guys are really feeding down in the depths, 1,000 meter and more, chasing calmars. But the most likely things that they could encounter definitely are birds and whales, and maybe some fur seals and penguins.
Oh, it just sounds fascinating, and it's been so lovely to have your insight and your depth of knowledge of this specialised region. Thank you very much for joining us today. Somebody that really hopes she doesn't come into close contact with the megafauna down there because she experienced it 4 years ago is Sam Davies, and we heard from her today.
Definitely looking forward to being in the Southern Ocean. I've kind of been looking out for my first albatross for the last few days. Haven't seen one yet. Yeah, impatient really to see what it's like with Initiative Care with this boat. We're in areas where there's really a lot of wind and a lot of waves, and there's quite high probability that we'll limit the sea state we want to see and the wind speed we want to see. And if possible, and not just for comfort, it's for performance as well, because our boats, we really have to slow down if it's too windy or too rough.
So the compromise that between boat speed with the wind speed and the wave action is really critical for our sailors, especially now as we come in to this new phase into the Southern Ocean. As we said, we're going to be passing the Cape of Good Hope sometime this afternoon, ahead of the current record from 2016 and held by Alex Thompson. They've been sailing, once you're past this front fleet that are now positioning themselves for the next low pressure, this back group are trying to move away from this high pressure down south so that they can position themselves for the new low that's coming. Our daggerboard fleet, where Conrad Colman was, is still enjoying some sunshine, pushing south, and will have a much more traditional route. As we look at this current, this Agulhas current that we were talking, rich and abundant with nutrients for the fauna down there, you can see it wiggles around, and we can see our boats are trying to position themselves in a favourable turn of this current that undulates as it goes along. And Charlie was saying that he could feel every hour when it changes when he was in the path of the current or out of the path of the current. So this is what they're trying to look at. It's going to be multiple jibes. It's going to be very busy, lighter conditions, so a lot of sail changes as well. Somebody that was a little bit frustrated about moving off the front of the pack is Pip Hare, and she talked about what it means now of her frustrations and how she's going to position herself.
I kind of really feel that where we are, we kind of have missed out on all of the good stuff. The boats behind are catching up, the boats ahead are getting away. And so it's kind of really nice to be able to break the cycle and have a different objective other than just sailing fast in a straight line, which is kind of what it feels like we've had to do for the last week or so. Just feels like I want to get going now. I definitely not relishing being slammed around, but yeah, I'd really like to take the handbrake off and get going east. I'm hopeful that there are some miles to recover. I'm hopeful that we'll get in touch with that kind of second pack back. That's my aim, definitely. And I would say, you know, the aim of everyone around me is to catch up with that second pack, which I think is doable.
So one thing for sure in the Southern Ocean, the weather comes from behind, so there is that chance of that concertina effect. But we can see there's been very little change at the front of the pack. Charlie Dallin, who we spoke with, holds on to his lead, has extended slightly, but every manoeuvre, every jibe will be critical for them now. And we have that first 4 people in the 50-mile zone, and Sam Goodchild holding in at 7th position. Second generation boat, absolutely having an amazing race. Slight drop in mileage there for Nico Lundven on board Holcim PRB. Going through our internationals there, Sam Davies, who we heard from, who's looking excited about the Southern Ocean in 10th. Just behind her, Justine Metro, who battled those sail damage to stay there. Boris Herman, and then we've got Pip Hare in Medallia, resigned to the fact that she needs to head south to find the next low pressure. Isabel Josh, kind of sailing on her own in the pack, a little bit of distance from the boat in front, a distance from the boat behind. Jean Le Cam still leading the daggerboard boats, but this really close cluster, including Giancarlo Pedotti, Alan Rora, and then we've got Koji and Conrad, who we spoke to, who we know saw each other yesterday. All these guys are within sight. Chasing hard is Oliver here, trying to get onto that next pack. And then bringing up the rear, we've got Denny van Weinberg, we've got Jackie, and we now have Xabi in New Europe in the Southern Hemisphere, joining the rest of the pack. Now, ahead of going into the Southern Ocean, I spoke to Benjamin Dutroux this morning just to see if he was happy with all his preparations.
Yes, I'm very happy to have repaired the masthead zero. I just think it was taking I don't know 2-3 hours of repair, but at the end it was more than 5 hours. So it was a long time stop, but I'm very happy with the repairs. I had a big checkup of the boat yesterday, and I will finish it today. So the boat is in good shape to go in the south, so I'm happy with that.
Are you looking forward to the Southern Ocean?
Yeah, I think I can't wait. I can't wait that. I want to take this low pressure and to go in the south. I want to live this new story. I'm sure it will be not the same than 4 years ago, but can't wait to discover that.
Well, they're definitely all looking forward to getting into the Southern Ocean, and it's all about to happen. And this afternoon, you'll be able to check them as they pass the Cape of Good Hope and see that record fall. I'd like to thank my guests on today's show, Dr. Katy Hill and Dr. Michael Wenger, for that information and that insight into our oceans, the science, and the fact of it all impacting our environmental health. It's the weekend coming up, but we are still here every day between 1:30 UTC, that's 14:30 French time, for 30 minutes to bring you the updates. So please join me. And in the meantime, I'm going to leave you a beautiful serenade from Roman Antanasio on board Fortinet.
Emmène-moi danser ce soir, joue contre joue et serré dans le noir. Et-moi l'amour comme aux premiers instants, comme cette nuit où tu as pris mes 17 ans.